It's hard to speculate about the MCU because I feel like it could either end this year or 30 years from now. What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Stars and Garters. I'm Katie Pettit, and yes, I know that we have been doing my non-comics history of series, and that it's been really awesome, and I assume you guys love it so much, but if you do, you should watch it more, because it takes a really long time. But anyway, thank you to those of you who have watched it. And of course, if you've been following, we are at my number one, my favorite Marvel character of all time, Wolvie, and it's the last one. It's the big number one. So I am not going to do him today. One, because I don't have that outline written at all. So, but also because I do have another outline for an episode that I've had it made for a while now, actually. And, I've been wanting to talk about it. So we're gonna take a little tiny break. Hopefully, I will try to get that, Wolverine episode by next week. But we're gonna take a short little break from the non-comics history and go into a different topic. So, today we are gonna be talking about a Marvel Comics storyline that I think needs to be introduced into the MCU. Just needs to be made into a movie. So, what with the X-Men being introduced into the MCU, and also the Young Avengers getting their own movie, I have a wild idea for who should be up next. Now, you may recall that a while ago, I think it was my first comic review, actually. I did a review of a comic series that I really, really loved, and I talked about it, went through the series, and it was great, and I really do still love it. And yes, I do think it can be made. I think it should be made into an MCU movie. And that storyline is the new X-Men. Now hear me out, okay? Obviously, they kind of tried that with the whole New Mutants movie and everything, but that is on, like, we don't talk about Bruno status, so that movie doesn't actually exist. So just it's that's not a real thing. I know this may seem niche, but it would actually help introduce the X-Men, give the X-Men and the Avengers an easy connection point, and get the attention of the next generation. Okay. With that said, here is my plan for how we get the new X-Men into the MCU and into their own movie. Maybe even multiple movies. I don't know. So, how they could be introduced. I'm talking about my main core group from the series I reviewed. Helion, Surge, Dust, Mercury, Tag, Prodigy, Rockslide, Elixir, and X-23. I didn't realize that was 9, that's a lot. But, basically everyone on the cover of the first book. There's, like, no way am I saying we need to get these guys in here as soon as possible. I'm not saying they need to get a movie like one of the first ones. They need to start churning it out, because that you don't show the super niche characters first. At least that's how my mind works. I feel like, well, I mean, I was gonna say DC kind of is doing that, but like they're also doing the huge, like, Superman, Supergirl, Batman movies, so it kind of evens out. But anyway, I'm not saying like get the new X-Men in here immediately, like make it one of the first movies. Like, no, the X-Men themselves, like the adult X-Men, they need to be well established as characters before you do this. And also, if they take it in a direction where they start with the X-Men, like the main X-Men, as just like teenagers or however old they were, like very young themselves when they first started introducing them to the MCU. Obviously, they also need to grow up and go through their own stories and arcs and whatnot. So it would have to wait. It would have to wait a long time because the X-Men that people know and want to see need to be introduced and need to grow up and need to have their stories. So my thought, maybe throw some of the new X-Men as like cameos, make them have just like little comments or something, or just like show them doing some powers and stuff, just to like, if people know who they are, we'll get a little excited, but don't make it about them. Just like show that they do exist in a movie about the main X-Men. But perhaps start giving the new X-Men maybe a little bigger roles, and I think we do that as the MCU does perhaps a House of M storyline for the MCU. So, House of M, if you didn't watch the review, basically Scarlet Witch goes crazy and snaps, not snaps like Thanos, but like she snaps away like 99% of all mutant powers, and takes powers away from a bunch of mutants, including the kids. So that would be kind of complicated with where Scarlet Witch is at right now. But we're not going to talk about the realisticness of it necessarily because I don't know what's happening in the MCU at all or what's going to happen with mutants. I'm just like sitting back and letting it unfold at this point. So, perhaps they could do a House of M storyline. And I think if they went that direction, after you do classic X-Men origin storylines, get them grown up, and then do House of M. Because then that is the perfect entry point for the new X-Men. So the very start of the comic series remains one of my favorite parts of the entire series. One of my favorite parts of like any comic I've ever read. Because it just shows the impact of M Day, which is what they call what happened in the House of M storyline. It just shows the impact of it like in the best possible place because it looks right inside the very place it would have the most effect, the school full of mutant children. So obviously it's important to all mutants, and you have your adult mutants who have to deal with it as well. And that's why the House of M, I'm not saying start off the House of M as a new X-Men storyline. Incorporate it into the X-Men's storyline and give them a movie where it happens. Maybe like an ending, kind of like Infinity War, where it's like it just ends with Scarlet Witch, blah, blah. What's the word? I was gonna say blooping, but that's not a word. What's the word for how she snaps everybody out? Making the powers go bye-bye, okay? Maybe end with that, and then we can do a new X-Men movie, because like after you've let the main X-Men have their few movies, M Day happens, that's a movie, new X-Men movie. Is what I'm saying. Because once your adult mutants have kind of gone through this with their movie, but then you like get to you get to make this movie about you have this entire school full of children who don't know how to handle general life, let alone like something crazy like M Day. So like, what say we just open the new X-Men movie with like a shot of the school going nuts like the comics did? Because like that was the first scene I saw in the comics and it completely got me hooked. So I think that is useful because you show up with you like immediately have both your main X-Men and the new X-Men all in one shot, and you're getting a sense of where the movie could start. So I think that would be a great way to do it, and I think that would not force them in, but it would it would be a really good entry point. So as far as after they're introduced, M Day has happened, now it's their movie. As far as the storylines that they could take with them, I just say, like, follow what the books did. I know that that's crazy and that they would never do that. I don't mean exactly, obviously. But do what the books did and then end where with Nimrod, not where the books ended. I think the storyline would go far enough if it ended with Nimrod, because it starts out with a Stryker storyline. Because after the kids are hit with M Day, Stryker comes to take advantage of it, and it's a classic X-Men thing, so it would fit in and not be like super niche or weird like was the big problem with the New Mutants movie. Um, and so it would have this classic storyline that you could give the kids, and there's not much you would need to change from the comics because the storyline was done so well in the comics. So just do the Striker thing. That gives all the kids like it ties them in with the adults and it gives them all their own arcs and makes them great characters. So really, I don't know what they would need to change. So it's done really well, and then end with the Nimrod Sentinel that Stryker had found, and end with the big fight because that is another classic X-Men thing, and it would look really cool and be pretty awesome probably, in my mind. Definitely they would need to like cut out the Mercury falling storyline because it's not. I didn't not like it, but it would just feel like random, and it only really focuses on like X-23 and Mercury. It's not. It wouldn't be a new X-Men thing. It'd be just kind of random, and definitely cut out the search for magic because if you remember my review, it was just what the actual heck. So, um, you know, cut that out and just do from Stryker to Nimrod. That could be like 3 movies or something. I don't know. And as far as where they could go from there, like I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't even know if the MCU is even allowed to end or if it's gonna end like this year. Like I don't know what's going on. This is all just speculation and dreaming. Okay, but you know. So some important things to get right if this were to happen. If they were to introduce the kids and get them a few of their own movies. Uh like I think one of the main things wrong with like young people uh in superhero movies, and I know like there's young people like they're young adults, but I mean like teenagers having superhero like being superheroes and in superhero movies. I think one thing is like just don't make it really high schooly because I think that is often a pitfall when they try to make a movie about the young characters. Like when they switch from the adults to the young characters, they can often really switch the tone way too much and make it very like high schooly and just kind of cringe and like because the characters they're all very unique, multifaceted characters with arcs and that have a place in the MCU, and they're not teenage tropes. So don't make them that because I think that's like I just see that like as the biggest like point of failure when they try to do young superheroes and make them the main character or whatever. And I mean like really young again because they're all like everybody's starts out young and stuff, but like young new characters especially that people might not be super into. I think you know Miss Marvel did an okay job with it, but like I think it just happens where they just become like high school tropes and stuff. So that's important. Make sure that it is the tone of an X-Men movie, not like some teenage whatever movie, and fit the tone of the X-Men movies, and you know, make the characters as they are and don't try to change it up because the characters are different. It doesn't mean they have to have a completely different feeling movie that doesn't fit the MCU at all, is what I'm trying to say. Build all of the relationships with the characters. That was one of my favorite things about the series. You need to go watch the review of the comic, or else you will not fully understand how really great my idea is. Um, Build all of the relationships, even the friendship, especially the friendships, because again, you could also get too focused on like the teenage romance aspect of it, and there's only like 3 romantic relationships. So definitely like focus on the friendships of the characters and not the romantic relationships. Don't make it teenage tropey at all. Is important, and just make sure the friendships are built, because I think that'll make it easier to root for the kids if you see their friendships, and also the relationships with the older X-Men are obviously very important, because if I think Hawkeye is a good example because you got to see Kate's relationship with Clint be so strong and grow. It was I would assume it's just harder for people to like immediately hate on her as the new Hawkeye when they see that like no, she's tight with Clint. She's not just this random stranger. Well, she was, but she grew and she became tight with Clint, and she's not just taking on the role of Hawkeye. She's like getting it from Clint. Clint is giving it to her. So the new X-Men need to be tight with the X-Men for the same reason, or else nobody's going to care about them. So, you know, just their relationships with the teachers. I would assume that Emma Frost would be a pretty big part in this movie. So, her whole story about her relationships with the kids she was in charge of was really important in the comics. So just make sure they have strong ties to the adults, because it's just it the only way it's like the biggest way you can make people even care about them at all. And hopefully the MCU will have built back up its trustworthiness by this imaginary point in my mind as well. So maybe it won't be so hard for them to build up trust. But that is a way to build up trust and like excitement for a new character is to give them strong ties to an old character. So that's very important. Okay, with a hypothetical movie, well, usually more often with an actually upcoming movie, and not just an imaginary movie that exists only in my head, but also with imaginary movies that exist only in my head. There comes fan casting. Um, so let's get into that. It's interesting. My ideas are interesting. Okay, so first of all, we have to talk about X-23 because she's obviously a big part of the series, and I love her. So, uh, Daphne Keane has already done well with her in Logan and Deadpool Wolverine, and like I mean, I still have a little bit of beef with Logan, but it's fine. Her portrayal is fine. The only problem is by the time the X-Men get introduced into the MCU, she might be too old, because she would also have to be introduced into the MCU, like the version of her in the MCU Earth, not like whatever was happening in Deadpool Wolverine, because I didn't actually get to see it, but it was some multiversal hijinks. So she's not the version that exists in the main MCU universe. So for her to get actually introduced, I think like Daphne Keane would be too old for that. So my thought process, I was just like scrolling through like young actresses that I know from things. And I know I said Daphne Keane would be too old, but Millie Bobby Brown hasn't been in a Marvel movie yet, to my knowledge. And I like when I see the vision. I see the vision of Millie Bobby Brown as X-23. I know she's probably like the same age as Daphne Keane, but like can you see it? It looks right. Um and she just looks younger, and I don't know. And I feel like she would play her character very well. I feel like she's similar to like Eleven in Stranger Things. At least at the point in the new X-Men storyline. So um I think she would do really well, but like, that's just a dream. So ideally all of these, since they're young, they're the kids, they would be cast as like up and coming actors and actresses who we don't know, because that's probably a better way to find actual suitable actors and actresses for these roles. And honestly, that's just my best suggestion and idea for the rest of the fan cast, because I do have actual names, but they're all from Lab Rats. Cause like I don't know, I couldn't think of any like young actors except for Disney kids, and I couldn't think of any Disney kids that would fit a Marvel movie besides like Lab Rats. So I had like Bradley Stephen Perry for Helion. I don't even know if he like acts anymore, but like he was in lab rats. So yes, that is the reason. And then for Surge, I'm not the only one who thought these as well. I looked because they have like fan casting websites where people like vote, and people had said these Disney kids before. I was not the first one. I just jumped on the bandwagon because they're the only names I recognize. For Surge, I saw Paris Burlek, who was in Lab Rats Elite Force, so she's also in Lab Rats. So I like her, and she kind of looks like it. Um, I for Elixir, hey, not from Lab Rats, but my two uh actors that I saw and thought, huh, maybe were Asher Angel and Ross Lynch. So, and then for Prodigy, I literally thought, hey, I wonder if the guy who played Leo from Lab Rats still acts. So, like, honestly, I just decided to cut it off there because I have no other ideas. Honestly, just like get new actors is my idea. that is that's my plan. Not my plan. I'm not doing anything. My I don't know. I don't have any better words besides idea, but that is the idea. Just get the new actor. That's my fan casting. An actor I've never heard of that is actually young and is good at acting. Or the Disney kids. Do whatever you want, Marvel, because this is a fictional scenario right now. So, in conclusion, it could work. Can you see? Can you see my vision? Can't you see my vision? I laid it out for you quite goodly, and I mean, it could work. It could work. Don't you think it could work? Probably. I don't know what's happening with the MCU, guys. I think anything could happen in the future. If it is still going on in like 10 years, it could happen. It could happen, right? So, just join me in believing that anything is possible, including a new X-Men movie in 15 years. So, I'm aware it's an incredibly faint dream, but it's just a nice dream. So, don't take it from me. I like it. Alright. That's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow and comment. Tell me any thoughts you have. I love to hear you guys comment on my videos. So do all that. Make sure to share the pod. Anybody who likes Marvel and wild ideas for movies, share it. Tell them that I'm crazy and we can be crazy together. So I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.